this, we've received breaking news from Buckingham Palace, which has announced that the King has been diagnosed with cancer.
What happens when the future of a centuries-old monarchy rests not in a king's hands, but in the quiet strength of a princess? Behind palace walls, a deeply personal message, a silent illness, and a rising royal presence have set the stage for one of the most emotional shifts in modern royal history. From hidden struggles to unexpected power, this is the story the cameras never fully captured. In today's video, we'll reveal the private moments, bold decisions, and subtle signals that could reshape the future of the British crown. After the passing of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022, the crown passed to her son Charles. It marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter. Queen Elizabeth had reigned for an unprecedented 70 years, becoming a constant in the lives of generations. When she died, the responsibility of continuing the monarchy's legacy fell on Charles, who became King Charles III. Charles had waited longer than any other heir in British history to take the throne. He spent decades preparing, observing, and shaping his role while standing in the long shadow of his mother. His life had been lived mostly in the public eye, with every relationship, decision, and statement under constant scrutiny. Becoming king was always part of his destiny, but the reality of the moment came with heavy emotional and personal weight. Though he officially became king almost immediately after his mother's passing, the transition was far from smooth. The start of his reign was marked by uncertainty. The royal family was dealing with its own internal tensions, some of which had been widely publicized. Meanwhile, the general public showed mixed feelings about their new monarch. In several Commonwealth nations, conversations began to grow louder about the possibility of separating from the British crown. Some countries questioned whether maintaining a symbolic connection to the monarchy still made sense in the modern world. Charles entered this period with a desire to modernize. One of his early goals was to streamline the royal household, reducing its size and focusing on a smaller core group of active working royals. His aim was to make the monarchy more efficient, more relevant, and perhaps more relatable to everyday people. While this effort was praised by some, others were less supportive. Critics worried that reducing the number of visible royals would make the monarchy seem more distant and less connected to the public. Behind the scenes, however, a more serious issue was quietly unfolding. In 2023, it was confirmed that King Charles had been diagnosed with cancer. The palace did not release the full details of his condition, choosing instead to maintain a degree of privacy. Still, the news was deeply impactful. Both the public and the royal family were forced to come to terms with the king's health challenges, just as he was settling into his role. Even as he dealt with his illness, Charles continued to appear at official events and carry out his duties. He tried to maintain a strong and composed image, presenting himself as someone who could be relied on during a difficult time. But those close to him noticed the changes. His appearance became noticeably thinner, and his energy levels dropped. The man who had once been vibrant and full of life now appeared more subdued, often tired, and at times overwhelmed. The crown, which symbolized his authority and duty, began to look less like a prize and more like a burden. By early 2024, the effects of his health condition became clearer. Charles started stepping back from some of his responsibilities. At first, the changes were subtle: fewer speeches, shorter public appearances, but they gradually increased. Members of the royal family began to take on more tasks to fill the growing gap. Princess Anne, Charles's sister, was one of the first to step in. Known for her tireless work ethic and no-nonsense approach, she started representing the crown more often, attending events and fulfilling obligations without fuss. Prince William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, also began to take on more prominent roles. They remained composed and calm, appearing at key functions and maintaining a reassuring presence for the public. Their increased involvement wasn't formally announced, but it was obvious to those watching closely. The roles were shifting. Charles, though still king, started fading into the background. His speeches became less frequent, and when he did speak, he seemed introspective, focused more on legacy than on long-term leadership. It was a quiet change, not marked by any one moment, but noticeable over time. The king seemed to understand that his reign might not be long or filled with sweeping reforms. Instead, he began to reflect on what had already been achieved and what would soon need to be passed on to the next generation. Amid this period of transition, Princess Anne remained a constant. Her steady presence had always been a defining trait, but now it became more vital than ever. She wasn't seeking headlines or trying to prove a point. Instead, she did what she had always done: fulfill her role with commitment and humility. Her dedication became a source of stability not just for Charles, but for the entire royal household. While the monarchy has weathered many storms in its long history, this period felt different. It was less about public scandal or external pressure, and more about a quiet but profound shift. The king's health, the changing roles of senior royals, and the broader questions about the monarchy's future all converged at the same time. In this context, the monarchy's ability to adapt without losing its core identity was put to the test. Public perception mattered more than ever. Trust had to be maintained, and that required careful management of both optics and reality. Charles's vision of a modern monarchy had to move forward, but he would not be the one to fully carry it out. This is where Prince William and Catherine began to emerge more clearly as the next figures to lead. Their calm approach, public trust, and commitment to duty made them well-suited for the roles they were stepping into. But behind the scenes, the emotional toll was likely significant. They weren't just taking on new responsibilities. They were watching a beloved family member face a deeply personal and public struggle. By the beginning of 2025, it became clear that the transition was not just about a generational shift. It was about how the monarchy could evolve while facing the deeply human realities of illness, legacy, and responsibility. The quiet changes happening within the royal household reflected larger questions about identity, purpose, and the future. Though not many headlines screamed about it, those paying attention could see it. The British monarchy was undergoing one of its most delicate transitions in recent history. It wasn't about abdication or scandal, it was about subtle shifts in power, dignity in the face of vulnerability, and the quiet strength needed to carry on. Princess Anne, the second child and only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, has long been recognized as one of the hardest-working royals. She often tops the list for the number of official engagements attended each year, despite never being in line for the throne. For her, the role has never been about visibility or recognition, but about duty. That same attitude shaped how she handled one of the most emotionally charged moments in recent royal history, the delivery of King Charles's final personal message. By early 2025, King Charles's health had noticeably declined. While he remained king in title and continued to make occasional public appearances, those close to him knew the reality was different. He had begun to step back from leadership behind closed doors, and more often than not, his royal duties were being quietly reassigned to others. The decision not to speak openly about these changes allowed the monarchy to maintain a sense of stability, but within the family, the shift was deeply felt. As Charles came to terms with the limits his illness placed on him, he began thinking about the future of the monarchy, not in terms of politics or institutions, but in terms of people. It's believed that during this time, he entrusted his sister, Princess Anne, with a personal message that reflected his deepest concerns and hopes for what lay ahead. It wasn't a formal statement, and it wasn't shared publicly. Instead, it was a message meant for the ears of those closest to him, delivered not with fanfare, but with feeling. The moment came during a quiet family reunion held at Sandringham early that year. It was a private affair, attended by senior members of the royal family, including Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. King Charles, by then too unwell to attend in person, remained at a distance. But through Princess Anne, his presence was still felt. Anne's tone, as those present later described, was not dramatic or rehearsed. She spoke with the same directness she's known for, but there was a distinct softness in her delivery. She began by reflecting on conversations she'd had with both Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles, moments where the future of the monarchy had been quietly discussed behind closed doors. It was in these personal reflections that Anne revealed the depth of her brother's thoughts. The core of the message wasn't focused on Charles himself, nor on his legacy. Instead, it was about the people who would carry the monarchy forward, specifically Prince William and Catherine. According to Anne, both the late Queen and the current King had placed a great deal of faith in them, not just because of their titles, but because of who they were as individuals. Anne shared that Queen Elizabeth had always admired Catherine's quiet strength. She saw in her a rare combination of grace, patience, and resolve. Catherine, unlike many who have joined the royal family, never appeared eager to be in the spotlight. Her influence came not from grand gestures or dramatic speeches, but from being consistent, calm, and present. Queen Elizabeth had apparently recognized this long before the public did. She understood that real leadership sometimes comes from those who do not seek to lead, but who inspire through action. Charles, according to Anne, came to share that view. In recent years, as his own health became more uncertain, he began to see more clearly the importance of having someone like Catherine at the center of the royal family. He reportedly believed that she had the ability not only to support Prince William as the future king, but to guide the monarchy through a time of transformation. As Anne continued to speak, the mood in the room changed. There was no tension, just a deep, quiet focus. Prince William, usually composed and in control, appeared visibly emotional. He had, after all, spent years relying on Catherine's support behind the scenes. But to hear those same thoughts echoed in the words of his father and his aunt, expressed in such an intimate and heartfelt way, clearly moved him. It wasn't that William was surprised by what he heard. If anything, it affirmed what he already knew. But hearing it acknowledged by others, especially by his father, who hadn't always been known for outward displays of emotion, seemed to resonate in a powerful way. It was a moment that went beyond family bonds and touched on something bigger: trust, legacy, and responsibility. Catherine, as always, stayed composed. She didn't react dramatically or try to shift the attention away from the message. Instead, she quietly listened, her expression calm and thoughtful. Those watching said she seemed touched, but grounded. There was a recognition in her eyes, not of pride, but of understanding. She knew the weight that came with such trust, and she accepted it with the same grace she always had. When Anne finished speaking, there was no applause. No official remarks followed. But there was a shared understanding that something meaningful had just taken place. The king's message, delivered through his most trusted confidant, had added a new layer of clarity to the future direction of the monarchy. It wasn't an announcement or a proclamation. It was more subtle than that, and perhaps more powerful because of it. It was also a rare glimpse into the inner workings of the royal family, an insight into how values and intentions are passed down not just through tradition, but through personal conversations and shared beliefs. It highlighted the importance of relationships within the institution, and the quiet ways in which influence and guidance are sometimes given. While most public attention tends to focus on formal events and high-profile appearances, it's often these quieter, more personal moments that carry the most weight. The decision to trust Princess Anne with such a meaningful task showed not only the depth of her relationship with Charles, but also the central role she plays in holding the family together during times of change. For the public, this story might never have been fully confirmed, but its impact was clear in the way the royal family moved forward. There was a subtle shift in dynamic, a renewed focus on Prince William and Catherine, not just as the future of the monarchy, but as its present steady hands. Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was born on January 9, 1982, at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. She was the first child of Michael and Carol Middleton, who were both hardworking and ambitious. Her father had worked for British Airways, and her mother, a former flight attendant, later started a successful mail-order business called Party Pieces. The company, which sold party supplies and decorations, became a financial success and allowed the family to provide a comfortable upbringing for Catherine and her younger siblings, Pippa and James. Although her family did have some connections to the British aristocracy through distant relatives, Catherine's early life was largely grounded. It was a mix of modest tradition and quiet aspiration. She grew up in the village of Bucklebury in Berkshire, where life was peaceful and private. Her parents valued education and encouraged their children to be curious, kind, and responsible. These values would become central to Catherine's personality. As a young girl, Catherine showed an early interest in sports and academics. She attended St. Andrew's School in Pangbourne, where she was known to be friendly and focused. Later, she went on to attend Down House School briefly before transferring to Marlborough College in Wiltshire. At Marlborough, she flourished both academically and socially. She was well liked by her peers, played hockey, and participated in other school activities. She was described as someone who worked hard, stayed out of trouble, and maintained a strong sense of self. After finishing secondary school, Catherine decided to take a gap year before starting university. During that time, she studied in Florence and also participated in a community service program in Chile. These experiences gave her a broader understanding of the world beyond her comfortable upbringing and helped build her confidence. She also briefly worked as a deckhand, which was another way she experienced life outside the familiar structure of home. In 2001, Catherine enrolled at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. She initially started studying psychology but soon switched her major to art history. It was there that she met Prince William, who was also beginning his university education. The two started as friends, sharing a similar group of acquaintances, and later became housemates, along with a few other students. As their friendship deepened, a romantic relationship eventually developed. By 2003, the couple had become more serious, though they kept things relatively private at first. The relationship between Catherine and William was not always simple. As the future king, William had an enormous amount of public and media attention on him, and by extension, Catherine found herself pulled into that world. Despite not being part of the royal family yet, her life began to change dramatically. She was followed by photographers, her background was examined in detail, and her relationship was a constant topic in the press. Through it all, Catherine remained composed. She never gave interviews or spoke publicly about her private life. Instead, she focused on building her own path. After graduating in 2005 with a degree in art history, she worked briefly as an accessories buyer for a fashion brand called Jigsaw. She also played a role in helping her parents run party pieces, contributing to the website and catalog. These roles weren't about making headlines. They were about doing meaningful work and staying grounded. Despite the growing pressure of royal attention, Catherine continued to support William during key moments in his life. She was present at important military events, including his graduation from Sandhurst, and often attended private royal gatherings. The couple experienced a brief separation in 2007, but they reconciled a few months later. From that point on, their relationship became more stable and public. In 2010, during a trip to Kenya, William proposed to Catherine using Princess Diana's sapphire engagement ring. The announcement was made public later that year, and it was met with widespread excitement. Many saw the engagement as a modern royal love story. Two university students who had grown up together, now preparing to take on a national role. Their wedding, held on April 29, 2011 at Westminster Abbey, was a global event watched by millions. Catherine wore a gown designed by Sarah Burton of Alexander McQueen, and the ceremony combined tradition with a sense of modern romance. She was officially given the title of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cambridge. After the wedding, the couple lived in Anglesey, Wales, while William worked with the Royal Air Force. This period allowed them some space to build their life together outside the pressures of full-time royal duties. As time went on, Catherine began taking on more official responsibilities. She attended charity events, visited hospitals and schools, and supported a number of causes focused on early childhood development, mental health, and the well-being of families. She did not approach these duties with showiness or self-promotion. Instead, she took time to learn about each issue, meet with experts, and listen to the people affected. Her interest in these areas seemed genuine and long-term. Catherine's approach to royal life has always been careful and considered. Unlike some others who married into royalty, she did not try to reshape the institution or seek public validation. She respected its traditions, while finding ways to bring her own voice to important matters. Her work behind the scenes, especially in areas related to children and mental health, began to draw praise, not just from the public, but from professionals in those fields. In 2013, Catherine and William welcomed their first child, Prince George. He was followed by Princess Charlotte in 2015 and Prince Louis in 2018. With each child, Catherine balanced her public role with her responsibilities at home. She was open about the challenges of motherhood and worked to create a stable, supportive environment for her family. Despite the demands of royal life, she appeared to prioritize being present for her children while still actively contributing to her official duties. Over the years, the public began to see Catherine less as a newcomer and more as a central figure in the royal family. Her confidence grew, her speeches became more polished, and her projects expanded. She became known for her interest in long-term impact rather than short-term visibility. Her early childhood development initiative, which launched through the Royal Foundation, has been one of her most significant efforts to date. What makes Catherine's journey unique is how naturally she seems to have grown into her role. She didn't come from a royal or political background. Her rise wasn't based on status or legacy, but on her ability to adapt, learn, and earn the respect of those around her. Her story is not just about becoming a princess. It's about doing so with thoughtfulness, dignity, and a clear sense of purpose. During this time, Prince William also reduced his public appearances. The family became more private, and there were no updates or new photos released. The silence was unexpected, and for many, unsettling. Public events came and went without her, and eventually, even the media grew more cautious in their coverage, unsure of the full picture behind the scenes. The palace remained largely silent, choosing to protect Catherine's privacy while offering no further details. Then, in March 2025, Catherine reappeared. The moment was quiet and simple, far from the grand public events most would associate with the royal family. She sat on a wooden bench, wearing understated clothing, with her hands gently clasped in her lap. There was no formality, no royal setting, just a calm and emotional message delivered directly to the people. Speaking in her usual composed voice, Catherine revealed that she had been diagnosed with cancer and had begun receiving chemotherapy treatment. The announcement came as a shock to many. Catherine had always been seen as a symbol of strength and resilience, often pushing forward with her duties even during personal challenges. But in this moment, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. Her words were honest and heartfelt, speaking not just as a member of the royal family, but as a woman, a mother, and a wife. She shared that the diagnosis had been difficult, and that she had needed time to process it privately with her family before speaking publicly. This moment of openness connected deeply with the public. It wasn't just about the royal institution anymore. It was about the human side of a woman facing something incredibly difficult. Catherine's expression, though calm, carried visible emotion. Her smile was familiar, but her eyes showed a depth of experience that many could relate to. There was no sense of performance, just a sincere moment shared with others who might be going through similar struggles. Her message resonated far beyond the UK. Around the world, people expressed their support and admiration. For those facing illness themselves, or supporting a loved one through it, Catherine's words provided comfort and solidarity. It was a reminder that illness doesn't distinguish between status or privilege, and that even those in the public eye face very real, personal battles. Throughout her recovery, Prince William remained by her side. He took on more responsibilities within the royal household while also maintaining a close presence at home. Their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, were protected from the media during this time, with the couple prioritizing their privacy and emotional well-being. For William, who had experienced the tragic loss of his mother at a young age, supporting his wife through such a difficult chapter carried its own weight. Even during her absence from public duties, Catherine remained quietly involved in her work. Friends and aides mentioned that she continued to show interest in the progress of her key projects, particularly in areas related to mental health and early childhood development. Her commitment to these causes had never been about visibility. It was about long-term impact. Even when she couldn't be present in person, her influence continued. Over the years, Catherine has earned a reputation as one of the most respected figures in the royal family. Her approach is measured and thoughtful, shaped by a sense of purpose rather than a need for attention. But this consistency and reliability have also led to growing conversations about her influence within the monarchy. Some observers have noted that Catherine's presence at public events tends to draw more interest than others, including Prince William. This is not due to scandal or spectacle, but because people are drawn to her calm demeanor and genuine manner. As her popularity has grown, so too has her role. She has taken on more solo engagements, launched major initiatives through the Royal Foundation, and forged strong relationships with organizations focused on health, children, and families. She has managed to balance the formality of her position with a relatable tone that many in the public appreciate. In an institution known for tradition and hierarchy, her modern approach has stood out. This growing influence has raised questions about what the future could look like. Traditionally, a queen consort has played a supporting role, standing beside the reigning monarch rather than shaping policy or strategy. But in Catherine's case, some commentators wonder whether her influence might eventually extend beyond that expected framework. With her experience, public trust, and leadership in key areas, she is increasingly being seen as more than just a royal spouse. Within palace circles, it's believed that her relationships with senior royals, including Queen Camilla and Princess Anne, are strong. Both women, known for their practical and grounded approaches, have reportedly spoken highly of Catherine's dedication and sense of responsibility. These quiet endorsements matter in a family where reputation and internal support often determine roles and responsibilities. At the same time, there have been rumors of potential tension. Some reports have suggested that Prince William may feel overshadowed at times by his wife's popularity. While there is no clear evidence of this affecting their relationship, the dynamic is one that observers continue to watch. In a world where media attention can shift rapidly, the perception of public preference carries real weight. Yet, it's worth noting that Catherine has never positioned herself in competition with William. Her focus has remained on serving the public, supporting her family, and advancing causes she believes in. If anything, her influence has added depth to the royal brand, showing that strength can come from compassion and that leadership can take many forms. The idea that the future of the monarchy might look more like Catherine than William is not a criticism. It's a reflection of the evolving nature of the institution itself. As the monarchy seeks to remain relevant in modern times, figures like Catherine represent a bridge between tradition and progress. She embodies a kind of quiet reform, one that doesn't abandon the past, but gently moves it forward. Whether or not Catherine takes on a larger, more defined role in the future remains to be seen. But what is clear is that her impact is already being felt. Her story, marked by steady growth, resilience in the face of illness, and a clear sense of purpose, has made her one of the most influential figures in the royal family today. The public's admiration for her continues to grow, not because of glamour or spectacle, but because of the way she carries herself, with sincerity, empathy, and strength. In many ways, she is helping to shape what modern royalty looks like. As the royal family prepares for the years ahead, the balance of tradition and change will be critical. Catherine stands at the heart of that balance. And in doing so, she may well become one of the defining figures of the monarchy's next era.